at all. And so Adam Lucas will join us. He wrote a great story. I sent it to Paul, Craig, Armstrong. Armstrong, of course, our resident North Carolina fan. Adam Lucas joins us now on Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports. Pretty busy day. What a great story, and the way you summarize, Adam. I read it. I sent it out to some of the guys on staff who are going to be a part of the show. And are they still on Cloud 9 in Chapel Hill? I know North Carolina's won basketball games before, but is there a kind of a special Cloud 9 right now still in Chapel Hill?
I think the entire nation's still on Cloud 9 other than about 2 square miles in Durham. Yeah, I mean, that was a special win. Of course, Carolina and Duke are going to play again, and those two teams are used to always knowing that you're going to see each other again. Don't get too high, but you're never going to have Mike Krzyzewski's last game in Cameron that has made into the World Series, Super Bowl, and Second Coming all on one Saturday night and win that game. That'll never go away. And so it's been a pretty enjoyable 48 hours.
Adam, they didn't sub in the second half. All these things that they did, was there just an attitude going in that, hey, we're going to wreck this thing for Coach K?
I think it was less about Coach K and more about just playing better than the Tar Heels did in the first meeting. I think Carolina felt like that wasn't a representative performance, that they didn't compete at the level Duke competed. And most of the message in practice, Carolina's previous last game was on Monday, so they had almost the whole week. And the message in practice was just, you've got to compete better for 40 full minutes and see what happens. And that's what they did. And it felt like Duke sort of gave in a little bit the last couple minutes. And so those 40 minutes of competing paid off.
Adam, what kind of an atmosphere was that like to be a part of?
It was real quiet there at the end. I like that part the best. I mean, it was a circus, but everybody knew it was going to be a circus. I think some people were surprised when Carolina ran out of the tunnel rather than the Washington Generals, because I think everybody was expecting the Washington Generals. Certainly Duke was, because they clearly had no contingency plan for what was going to happen if they lost the game. And so that's fun. I mean, that's what you want to play in. If you come to North Carolina, you want to play in those types of games. Roy Williams always used to say that the absolute greatest weapon you could ever have as a coach is a talented team that you can persuade that they're the underdog. And that's what it felt like happened on Saturday.
There's a quote early on in your story. Adam Lucas joins us again on Sikkim 365 Radio. After Hubert Davis and Carolina beat Syracuse, I'm going to tell you something. We're not going over there for a party. We're not going over there to be a part of some festivities. We are going over there to play a game, and we're going to play. There's no question that they did that. Also, Carolina, it seemed like recently, Adam, was kind of on the tightrope of being a bubble team or in the tournament. They pretty much have destroyed that problem, right?
If the Tar Heels are on the bubble, I don't know how they're going to find 64 teams to play in that event. Carolina's won 12 of the last 14. They've got one of the best road wins in the entire country this season. I mean, I think that storyline, I hope, is over with, and now hopefully we can look forward to a fun ACC tournament right there in the cradle of the ACC up there in Brooklyn.
No, I think I'm saying yeah, in Brooklyn. I was talking about at one point this year there was a little bit like, hey, what's going to happen here? But they have turned the Jets on and obviously emphatically did what they did at Duke. Paul?
Adam, I know that there was some scuttlebutt that Duke fans were mad, or Duke was mad that UNC didn't, send him a Valentine when they came to Chapel Hill. I don't know how much that is more scuttlebutt or true, but is there, to that end though, is there a sense among fans though that they'll miss that part of the rivalry at all? I wouldn't think that there would be.
I don't think miss it is the way I would put it. I did see that our good friend Gerald Henderson said that the Tar Heels didn't have any class because they didn't give Coach K a rocking chair or whatever. So if there's anybody I want giving their opinion on class, it's the guy who punched the Carolina player in the face during the course of the game. That's certainly the one I want to hear from. And the fact of the matter is that's just simply not true. Carolina did honor Mike Krzyzewski before that game. They took a picture with Mike Krzyzewski, Hubert Davis, Roy Williams, and John Shire all together. They put it on the video board. They said, this is Mike Krzyzewski's 42nd or whatever it is and last trip to Chapel Hill, and put that picture on the Smith Center video board. So I guess that that wasn't enough. But as we all know, and as I'm sure you guys know and heard on ESPN, it's not about Mike Krzyzewski. Look, he didn't want this at all.
Right.
Retiring a whole 12 months in advance, he had no idea anybody would ever mention it. And if you believe that, then the cradle of the ACC really is in Brooklyn.
Adam, how big of a deal was that for Hubert Davis, and what was he like in the postgame?
He was just really proud of his team. I mean, they competed better than they have in some other games this year against really good teams. I mean, you've seen the scores. The Tar Heels didn't play well against Kentucky. They didn't play well against Tennessee. They didn't play well at Wake Forest earlier this year. And so I think he was just really satisfied that his team finally put a solid 40 minutes together against a really good team on the road in the national spotlight. And I think also kind of lost in all this is that he coached a really good game. I mean, he managed that game well. He managed Armando Bacot's foul situation very well, which is a key indicator for Carolina. They have to have him on the floor. His game plan with the high ball screens with Armando, really the Duke defense struggled with that. And the way he arranged the defensive matchups to get the matchups he wanted when Duke was on offense really helped the Tar Heels. And so he coached a really good game. Does that mean he's a better coach than Mike Krzyzewski? Of course not. You got to do it for 40 years. But on that one night, he had a great game plan, and his team executed it really well.
Adam, can you maybe compare and contrast the way Roy Williams went out of his career and Coach K?
Have you ever seen The Sun and the Moon? Or are you familiar with Light and Dark? I mean, Roy Williams went out his last game at the Smith Center, kissed center court, kind of in the middle of all the, the usual post-game commotion, and everybody's kind of tapping each other on the knee if they even saw it, and saying, hey, what did he just do? Did he just kiss center court? What does that mean? And then the other gentleman had a big press conference, danced to some song at the press conference. And then since then, we've had 9 months of everybody telling us how he's the greatest thing in the world. But, of course, it's not about him. So I think two pretty different approaches, but I think also two approaches that are pretty symbolic of both of their personalities.
For those who have not read the story, and again, I thought it was really brilliantly written, Adam, to kind of summarize, or actually the entire, from the lead up to the game to after the game. Will you share the story about Coach K's family and back inside the bowels of Cameron Indoor and Hubert Davis helping them at a time when they were trying to get to where they wanted to go?
Sure. You have to kind of be familiar with Cameron. Don't think of a big arena like your listeners might be thinking of, a modern arena. This is much more similar, and I don't mean this in an offensive way, to more like a high school gym where there's maybe one or two ways in or out and very limited access. And so after the game, there's all the post-game hubbub as per usual. And Coach K's family, including several of his daughters, were trying to get through to the court because the post-game ceremony was taking place on the court after the game. And to get there, you had to walk directly by the Carolina locker room. Well, they didn't have credentials because they probably don't need them. They're Mike Krzyzewski's family, but this particular security guard didn't recognize them and was trying to stop them and hold them back. And so Hubert Davis, who's about the same age as a couple of Coach K's daughters, so it wouldn't surprise me if they were maybe in school at the same time and maybe knew of each other. And certainly were familiar with each other from his work with Game Day when, of course, they were in Durham all the time. He went up to the security guard and said, hey, this is Mike Krzyzewski's family. They've got to get to the court. I understand they don't have credentials, but you need to let them through. It's very important that they get through. And so, what else is the security guard going to do in that situation? He said, come right through. And so they did, and on the ceremony went.
Surprised he didn't have some sort of card with their faces on it.
Yeah.
Or just referred to.
Or just remembered him.
I was surprised they didn't just blow by. I mean, as all of you guys know who do the games, if you just walk confidently, 97% of the time you can go anywhere you want to, anywhere in America. But I think they were a little stunned at that point in time.
How does this win compare to other wins at Duke for Carolina? Like, for instance, the win at J.J. Redick's senior night. How does this compare?
Yeah, that's the most comparable one, I think. But I think the thing about that one was that was just the culmination of a 4-year Duke career for J.J. Redick and Sheldon Williams, who had become the face of college basketball. And Carolina had this young team, Tyler Hansbrough and Danny Green, and it was going to eventually be one of the best teams in Carolina history by 2009 when they won the national title. But similar amounts of, there's no way Carolina could go into Cameron and win this game. So it had that same type of feel, with the difference being that this wasn't just a 4-year senior culmination. This was a 40-year culmination of essentially the person who is Duke basketball and has made himself the embodiment of Duke basketball. So you're not just beating 2022 Duke. You're not just beating A.J. Griffin and Mark Williams and those guys. You're beating the full embodiment of Duke and leaving them with a loss that'll be there forever. And that's something that Carolina fans will forever hold in the Carolina-Duke rivalry, which the Carolina and Duke fans are always looking for that one-up. And this is one-up that will never go away. There'll never be another last game over there unless they manage to somehow figure out a way for him to coach against, Meredith College or something next year, which wouldn't rule it out. But for now, that's the one-up that'll never go away.
Adam, I heard from some sources that you almost got thrown out of the game. Is that correct?
I was inside of Cameron the entire night, and I love all those folks over in Durham, and they do a great job. Certainly, they're trying to do their best all the time. Sometimes they might be a little overzealous, but got to see the whole game and wouldn't have traded it for the entire world.
Armstrong, are you trying to get him in trouble, or are you trying to, maybe somebody missed something? What's going on with you?
I was just told to ask about.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Adam Armstrong comes from a North Carolina family,
yes,
even though he is a Baylor alum, so he is grown up bleeding Carolina blue.
Absolutely.
He's very excited to talk to you.
He's
today.
wearing the colors on his golf shirt today as well.
How long you say you've been reading him?
Oh, I've been reading him since I could read. I mean, yeah, I've been going
Basically,
to
I'm
Carolina.
ancient is what you're trying to say.
Yeah, that is what I'm trying to say. No.
Adam, he just called you old.
Yeah.
I'm not. Again, it's at Go Heels on Twitter, writes for them, at Carolina_pod, the co-host, and, of course, GoHeels.com as well. Paul, did you have one more for Adam?
Yeah, what is it like? I'm curious, too, if you just caught a glimpse of, Nolan Smith or Cherokee Parks or somebody in that moment of the loss, the players that were in that, the Duke All-Star game, whatever you want to call it, the Ocean's 11 of Duke games that came back. What was that like, seeing the players who all came back for this Coach K-Fest to watch their faces during that game?
It was hard to tell them apart because they all had on their matching Coach K uniforms with their Coach K shirts. They had covered up the Duke logo inside of Cameron with that exact same K logo. The box scores had the K logo on it. It was hard to know who was there, who was a former player, and who was just another in-uniform K person. I did enjoy going back to watch the game, as I'm sure you guys noticed, that there was not allowed to be a made field goal in the game without ESPN cutting to the crowd to show us either Coach Krzyzewski's wife or a former player. And I really appreciated that at the moment when Jay Williams was frantically signaling for a timeout that never came. And I'm sure that Jay Williams got a very sternly worded phone call from the Duke basketball offices telling him they did not need his advice on when to call timeout. So I really enjoyed that part.
Man. Have you ever had a better 2 or 3 days of your life? I mean, it sounds like this is like better than a national championship or 10.
It's not quite better than a national championship, and the Tar Heels have been fortunate, as of course Baylor has, to win some of those. And so it's not quite like that. It's just different. National championship, most recently Carolina played Gonzaga, and it was hard to have a lot of built-up passion about Gonzaga other than you want to beat them to win the national title. I've been building up some passion for Duke since birth. Imagine that your whole life leads up to one night on which you get to right all that is wrong with the world and make someone miserable who values themselves over pretty much anything in the world. And that's a pretty good night. And I don't know what's going to happen the rest of the season. And the fact is, Duke's still really good.
Yeah.
And I anticipate them to do really well in the NCAA tournament. But no matter what they do, Mike Krzyzewski's on a one-game eternal losing streak at Cameron Indoor Stadium, and that's never going to change.
Wow.
Gotta love rivalries.
Yeah.
Man.
All right, I'm going to ask you a question. You mentioned Baylor, and I know in the ACC, and we know the history, although the conference this year has been, with Duke and North Carolina. Notre Dame's on a pretty good run. But how much does that register or resonate in ACC country what Baylor's done? And of course, Kansas, everyone knows with Kansas and the Roy Williams connection. Plus, it's Kansas. They're a great tradition-rich power. How much does what Baylor's done even resonate in the ACC at all?
Well, I think it resonates a lot, and I think that's partially because they're really fun to watch play. I mean, they play the way that everybody here wants to play. They compete on every possession, and they defend, and they find creative ways to score, and they're not necessarily doing it with the 3 of the top 5 NBA draft picks like some folks around here are. I mean, they're coaching those guys, and they're getting better, and they're playing hard, and anytime you go in to play them, it's going to be a painful experience, and if you don't show up, they're going to embarrass you. And I think that's always the way that the ACC has prided its very best teams on playing. And so that's why teams like Baylor are fun to watch.
Thank you, Adam. Really good stuff, man. And thanks for your transparency, your enthusiasm. GoHeels.com, J.A. or J. Adams Lucas on Twitter, the letter J and Adam Lucas on Twitter. Thanks for your time. Enjoy the rest of the tournaments coming up, and hopefully whatever run Carolina has in front of them.
Thanks, guys. Hopefully we don't run into the Bears because they're a really good team.
Thank you very much. North Carolina writer Adam Lucas. He has a really good backstory about leading up to it. At the end, Hubert Davis, he noted this. He doesn't curse. That has been well documented. The players cranked up a little Dirk.
Cranked up Lil Durk. It's not a Lil Durk. It's Lil Durk.
Players cranked up Lil Durk.
There you go.
Song on a speaker near the back of the bus. As they're driving away, it's pretty safe to bet that this was not a song on Davis's personal playlist, but there was a Tar Heel head coach grinning. And what did he say? Turn it up. Good for Hubert Davis going down that Lil Durk in a moment after the win against the Dukies.
I think every fan base should be jealous of UNC now that they get to have this moment, and most of you never will, because
can they play in the tournament? Could they not play in the ACC
but it's
tournament?
about being at Cameron
I know,
Indoor.
and it was Kay's like graduation party or whatever. Yeah.
So, but I just think of it this way: when Steve Spurrier left Florida, he left in the offseason and went to the Redskins. So none of the, like when I was still in school then, none of us got to enjoy that. It was just like one day he was there and then he was gone, and there was got to beat him I think they did beat him in this last game, but even still, it wasn't the same.
No, it's different.
Will Duke still have as many fans as they have right now?
T-shirt fans?
Yeah. They're probably because they have to be one of the most rooted for teams in college basketball nationally. I mean, easily they have to be.
You talking about Duke?
Yeah.
They're also they're like the Cowboys. They're the most loved and hated.
That's what I'm saying. They're Yankees, Lakers, Cowboys, and if you're somebody who roots for all those teams, there's absolutely no real explanation for that. There's none. Like that's just such a homer thing. But they've become such a popular team for the last 30 years, really. And now that he's gone, I mean, do you see the fan base dwindle a little bit? I ain't thought about that at all. But I mean, Coach K is Duke basketball. Well, they'll still be popular, but I can't imagine they're going to be as popular as they have been without him.
Well, I mean, think about how many T-shirt Cowboy fans have dwindled. Percentage-wise,
they turned into Patriots fans.
Yeah, they moved on to the Patriots. So maybe the most whoever goes, like maybe Gonzaga gets some fans if they
all those Heat fans who are now Lakers fans because they were really just LeBron fans. Yeah. They were never really a team. Yeah, so there'll probably be some folks that jump ship, I would think.
You know why it's so special when the Cubs finally won a World Series, or the Red Sox finally won a World Series, or teams that Cleveland, whoever, whenever that time comes. I'm talking about the city of Cleveland. It's because so many fans are still fans of the original team that they loved when they were like born and bred or whatever. And now it just seems like fans just bounce around. And players have a lot. It's not. I think they follow players as much as they now follow teams.
That's what it is.
And I had some great years. No question my favorite teams in college and pro football or whatever. It's bad now.
I'll tell you this.
But no, hold on. Yeah. But it does seem like it's less and less of sticking with the same team through wins or losses than it is now.
I think Craig and I's generation was maybe not to knock the young guys, but we're the last generation that grew up on. For example, I'll just tell you, I love Wade Boggs and I loved Roger Clemens when they were with the Red Sox, and I love Johnny Damon. Johnny Damon helped them win a World Series, but when they went to the Yankees, this is it. They were dead to me. That was it. I'm not going to root to them.
I get it.
And just,
But I was a big Adrian Peterson fan, especially when he first came out of Oklahoma. I didn't turn into a Vikings fan. I was an Adrian Peterson fan, but I sure as heck didn't start rooting for the Titans here, or, all the teams he's been on. I wasn't like hopping like now I don't even remember all the teams. He's like a Lions fan because Adrian, like I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I know it's not the same as LeBron because LeBron, that's easy. You just follow him because you know he's going to win. Yeah. So that's not hard to do.
Do you think free agency starting about the time when I was in college in the 70s and eventually in the NFL didn't start till the 90s? I wonder if the advent of free agency changed being a lifelong fan of a team because players move so much because before they couldn't.
Well, and like if your team traded a guy away, you could be mad at them. But look, I love Mookie Betts, but he's a Dodger now.
Right.
That's it. I can't. He's not going to help the Red Sox anymore. I can lament them trading him, but that's just how it is. I don't know. I think, there was always those people. I remember driving through Dallas one day, and it was almost like a meme right in front of me. There's a person who had a back window, and it was a Cowboys, Lakers, and Yankees sticker. It was like the thing you just make fun of. That's not really real. There's nobody really like that. And it was like, no, all he was missing was like a Canadians or a Red Wings sticker to, really take every championship imaginable. I don't know. I think there's probably part of it's just that people are more fans of certain stars than they are of teams, but I don't know. I don't think there's like just some massive Aaron Rodgers fan. I mean, is there that's going to be a Bengals fan if he were to go there, or and you'd switch your allegiance from the Packers? Like, I don't know. I think it was kind of unique with LeBron, especially because he did move around, and it was sort of unexpected in a way that then he bounces to Miami, and so now all of a sudden a bunch of people who did not care one iota about the Cavs suddenly did because of LeBron, and they're not going to stick with the Cavs without LeBron, so now they're Heat fans, and then now they're Lakers fans. And
back to
Cavaliers. But I don't think it's like that with most players. I think he's unique in that regard, but I also think there's just a lot of people that they just want to be able to say that their team wins all the time, and so it's just easier to hop from one bandwagon to another and not be accountable for it than actually go through the real pains of being a fan. So, those people probably celebrate championships, but there's no way, no matter what they say, that they get as much real, actual, true enjoyment out of it as people who actually go through the hard times.
Never thought Washington would ever win a Super Bowl, and when they did, I'll never forget the moment of where I was. And then I went through like you did, Paul, with Florida State, with Nebraska so close, even though they won a couple of times when I was very young. And then when they did, it was so much fun to enjoy that. And then, of course, the Rangers will still wait for that until the day that I'm dead.
I haven't seen the team win that I root for since the Mavericks, and that was like 11. A decade ago. It was a decade ago. And, that never crossed my mind of like, oh, the Astros are hot right now. The Rangers suck. I'm going to go be an Astros fan real quick. But there's people like that, and I just could never, ever be that way. That's a cheap celebration.
No, it doesn't mean anything. Like you're just riding the euphoric wave all the time. You don't really know how it really feels when it's been a while.
Yeah, I guess there's some that I think there's a lot of fans now that follow players rather than teams, and maybe free agency. We have one note of breaking news in Big 12 women's basketball. Jim Littell has been the head coach at Oklahoma State the last 10 years.